Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Creative Minds. Today, we're going to talk about branding and making ambassadors out of your employees and everybody working into the company you're with. I think this is an interesting topic because, every time we look at marketing, everybody thinks it's about social media and it's about print and it's about everything on the outside, but it's also a whole lot about the inside. And today, as always, Stuart is with me on the broadcast. Hello, Stuart.
Hi, Flavio. Good to be back. I think this is a great topic. It's essential, I think, to make sure you've got your internal team aligned with what's going on in your marketing activities, and you need to try and get them involved as far as possible. So it'd be good to discuss some of the creative ideas we found on how organizations do that.
Absolutely. And let's just jump right into the topic. When it comes to marketing, I've been around marketing people for quite a long time, supporting companies and clients. And if you look at anything that is about job postings, about marketing, it will talk about everything that is about how to communicate outside, how to promote the brand, how to promote products, how to, of course, look at the statistics and everything associated with that. But rarely it will look at the saying, well, how is it that it links with how marketing works inside the company and what is the link between the different departments, like human resources, for example, and the marketing department or internal communication to drive this. And I think one of the key elements is that we see that companies that are successful out there have, in fact, a base of employees that are passionate about their work and they're passionate about the brand, about the products they create or the services they support. And they drive that in a way that when they go to visit friends or when waiting for a train or in the bus or anybody asking where do you work, they display that they ooze that passion about the product and the stuff they do, right? And I think this is really cool. And what else could you do about having happy employees and passionate employees about what you do? Those are the best advertisers that you can get, right?
I agree totally. It's a real missed opportunity if you're not looking at that aspect of filling your marketing strategy. Um, I think one of the things we were talking about earlier as well, when you're looking for jobs on sort of marketing, it's very rare that the internal aspect of marketing is ever mentioned in the job description. But at the end of the day, that's where all the stories actually come from. That's where all the information comes from as to how best to position products and how the products and the solutions that you have actually solve the problems of the customers they're talking to. At the end of the day, it's all of your members of staff are out there talking to people and hearing the stories about how whatever it is you have, maybe it's a hardware product, maybe it's an insurance solution, how has that helped the customers? What problem did that resolve? And what was the experience working with you? And maybe also finding new opportunities that you never really thought existed. So you really need to have something in place, good communication, in order to pull that in from your team, but also need to be allowing that to be fed into your external communication as well, and use that as a basis for some of those things.
Correct. And in fact, today we see a lot of positions about marketing manager, marketing director, marketing associate. I mean, you name it. It's all about marketing, but rarely it says marketing and communication, right? And to me, I think marketing is communication anyway to start with, right? I mean, what's the point otherwise? We're all here to communicate information about the products and about the values and everything that goes to the customer. And that communication, when it says marketing and communication, it doesn't say marketing and external communication, but it says communication, which to me kind of equates of internal and external together, and that has to align. The same way as, I remember one of my clients would go and saying, yeah, but I would not really appreciate knowing that there's a new campaign going out and that my client is telling me or my customer is telling me, and I haven't heard anything from the inside about what's going on. That's a pretty bad position to be in.
Yeah, that's definitely the second element. There's the absorbing information from your staff and from your teams, but also telling them what their customers are maybe going to phone you about in the future. It's a really bad sign when customers turn up and say, "Yeah, I'd like the 10% discount," but you have no idea what that 10% discount's all about. So, and I
You
think
have a coupon
today
running
it's
today?
made a lot easier. Yeah, exactly. I think today's also
Yeah,
made it a lot easier. So you have lots of email is a complete disaster for me. I hate email generally. For me, email was only ever an electronic form of post. And I think today's communication platforms like Teams and Slack and Yammer and things like that, they're a great way of creating these sort of fleeting environments where you can have a almost a hanging discussion and share information along those sort of topics as well. So I think that makes the communication internally a lot easier to implement. That's for sure.
it does. And I mean, and this is also a two-way street, right? I mean, marketing needs to know what is the feedback from customers out there, anybody who's talking to the outside world. What's the feedback coming in? Success stories or maybe ideas about places where people are using a product in places that were originally not thought about, and how to go and basically drive that and um, leverage all that information. I think this is a big piece of info.
One of the other key things is as well is ensuring that your staff have some good understanding of how they can participate in marketing. Obviously, there's lots of people who would like to share their experience at work. They're proud to work at the companies they work at, but they're unclear as to in which framework they should actually be communicating externally, especially with social media. And what we see here in Germany as well, a lot of this is sort of hampered by privacy rules and privacy laws and things like that. So no one's really sure what to do. So I think one key element of the marketing team is to firstly define a framework, make sure that everybody understands what is allowed to be posted, how to post it, probably put in some sort of training program for a few key people who are interested, and help them to understand how to use social media, how best to communicate the message. And one of the best examples I saw recently was at a seminar from the LV 1871, which is a B2B insurance provider. And their staff felt that they worked for this great company, but if you looked at the website and you looked at the social media, it was all very staid and boring, and it was just insurance. And they felt they had a lot more to offer, and they put this great program in place, and it made such a big difference. Not only did the Twitter feed come alive, and you can go and look at it yourself, you see it's actually a much broader number of people participate with the mentioning the company. And they mentioned, what we're doing at lunchtime. We've got our, lunch and learn program going on this Thursday. Really looking forward to participating on it because they want to show what a nice place it is to work. And as a result of that, a knock on that hadn't really been planned for or foreseen was that people are much more interested in applying for jobs there. They now have a better idea of what it's like to work there and what sort of culture is being fostered. So that's really worked positively for the company in more ways than they were expecting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they have all those rankings going on about the most admired companies and the ones that are, with tools like Glassdoor and all those websites about evaluating how is it that people love to work there. And obviously making ambassadors out of every one of the employees of a company, regardless of the level into the hierarchy or their function into the company, is a big deal. And it doesn't happen just overnight. This is not something that goes on. You talked about Yammer and Trello and Slack and all those tools. You need obviously a platform somewhere where people are not only collaborating, but also exchanging information and listening what is going on in a way that they are not inundated with information, but they are being told or trained or even included into the development or into the rollout of a product so they know a little more about what is going on and they're excited and maybe they had a chance even to try it themselves. I mean, I've seen, I stood one day in just in front of Cupertino's Apple headquarters at the time, and every single employee would walk in. They had a MacBook, they had an Apple Watch, they had a phone, and they were not hiding into the pocket. They were showing it, and it was in front of the business. So it was not like they were showing it to the world. They were just proud of working with that company, right? And I thought it was really one of the examples of companies that really comes across as people being so excited and proud and just enjoying to look at that. And I'm sure this is the same with many other companies out there. And I think those are really those brand ambassadors where their kids going to school. Where does your dad or your mother work? And it oozes about, and it basically becomes contagious. I think this is a very key element. But the key point here is that it is part of a culture of the company. It is not something that is just statistic being like a cover put over just to make it look good. It is something that has to come all the ways of the management. It's a walk the talk from everybody into the company. And when new hires come in, you want to hire people that are going to be passionate and future ambassadors. So it is beyond marketing. It's a whole culture that goes alongside with that.
Yeah. One of the big challenges of these types of things, though, is I think management often gets cold feet, and they're worried that employers will say the wrong thing. There'll be some sort of social media disaster. Someone will make a comment that's misinterpreted, and this is almost seen as the reason for not moving forward on this type of process and developing an internal set of brand ambassadors. And for me, it's a peculiar um, line of argumentation, and I don't see having these brand ambassadors being anything different to having sort of the spokespeople that we used to train to talk to the press. So about 2 decades ago, I was invited to do a talking to the press presentation, and within it, then we were sort of explained to us what you should say, what you shouldn't say, how to prepare your thoughts, what's the difference between on and off record. And for me, that's actually a lot more risky, because if you put somebody in front of a camera with a journalist, or you let them sit down with a journalist and they make notes and go away and write about it, the first time you're ever going to find out what was said is when you see the media come out in print or on the television screen. So you have no control over that at all. Whereas working with these types of brand ambassador programs, if you train the people appropriately, which is exactly the same process, you can actually say to them, look, you can go out and tweet about any of these things in any which way you want within this framework. And if you have a question, if you're not quite sure, if you're not convinced yourself that it's the right thing to write, or you've not gone around about it in the correct manner, get in touch with us. Come to the core marketing team, pose the question, do you think this is appropriate or not? I'm not quite sure. And we'll help you. So marketing actually gets the opportunity almost to approve a lot of the messaging that goes out in these sort of programs to keep it all in check and make sure everything's okay. So the risk in reality is significantly lower.
Yeah, it is. And this is interesting too, the fact that from a marketing standpoint, having employees that are, I wouldn't say, I mean, they are trained, but some of them don't need training. I mean, some of them even will not talk to the press because of the function they have. They don't have that exposure per
Yeah.
se. But the fact that the marketing team is able to gather even feedback from its own employees, about how is it that they see the product, what they hear out there, um, what do customers love. And I think the key point here is also the fact that the people that work into the company they show that pride, and it comes back into the marketing team. So the marketing team is in fact an enabler inside the company to promote that communication about the products, about how it fits together, how it fits into the corporate strategy, how it fits into the big picture about where the company wants to drive forward into. And so it helps to basically allow everybody to walk into the same direction at the same time, which makes for companies it's a big deal, because then you can achieve things better, faster, smoother, with a stronger element, and not having to fight internally about where to go. And some people might not go, or what they call the naysayers and things like
Yeah.
this, right? And marketing there, it's not about outside, it's about inside, a whole lot about promoting the brand internally, and not just with roll up banners and things like this, but test the product, check it out, try it, even if this is somebody who has zero to do with it, that they can at least know what the company does. How many times I had somebody saying, yeah, I think we do stuff like this, but I've never seen even one,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, hang on. that is disturbing to me. I mean, and I mean, if this is like a mega machine and not everybody has seen it because they could not go there, I would understand. But if this is something that is, I would say, more accessible, I think those are things that are important. And this is part of that brand ambassador program, where people need to be part of it and know that they have a positive impact into bringing that product and that brand into the market.
Yeah. I think a lot of it starts right back at the very basics in the beginning. So if you need to have a very clear vision and mission for the company, and sort of positioning statements, elevator pitches, things like that. Um, and from those, it becomes very simple to explain what the company does. I think the most worrying thing is when you an exhibition, for example, and you go and talk to a few people on the stand and say to them, you know, what you do, what the core products or services that you offer. You actually get lots and lots of different responses, and none of them seem to really link with each other entirely. That's a worrying position to be in. So these efforts to develop these brand ambassadors, that's one element. Those are sort of maybe core people who want to participate in the marketing activities of the company but aren't part of the marketing team, some sort of like cross company side flow into the marketing activities that go on. But there should really be some overall introductory program and a regular process whereby people are introduced to, you know, what's the latest and greatest, why is it important, and all these things. It's, I think, from my own experience in the corporate world, you know, another product comes on the market and here's loads and loads of training about all the technical details of it. But again, we never get back to the true meaning and of the product and the usefulness of it by saying what problem does it solve.
Yeah, and I think this is where, I mean, not everybody wants to be an engineer into the whole product or into whatever that is being provided to the customer at the end, but at least to have an understanding, I think it's the minimum you can pass on. And I think, I mean, I'm looking at my notes here because we were looking at a few points that are important. To me, I'm always impressed because startups, you know, by default, people that work into a startup, as small as it can be, are going to be people that are going to be very engaged into their product, very engaged and passionate about the adventure that they're about to start or they are into. And as a company grows, then that passion turns into sometimes just as business, which is like, ah, you know, a company that has a startup mentality. Part of the mentality is that energy, that passion, that drive that goes along about what is coming next, what we're going to do next, and they keep that mentality, that structure inside the company about communicating to the people what is going on and how they're going to do it, and even gathering information or ideas from people about what is it we can do best next time. What's your thing, the next product or service that we can put out there? And people might come with different inputs depending on the position, the responsibility, or the work they do into the company. And marketing alongside with product marketing, and we will have, I think, definitely this is on our checklist. If anybody is watching, it's on our checklist to discuss, you know, marketing versus product marketing. And I think there too, there are a lot of interactions that have to go on. But those are all signals for the company and for the marketing team that are important because they're going to drive how you tell the story about your product, about your service. And that discussion about storytelling, I encourage you to watch the episode we did on that, is 100% linked to this because it just draws from that information. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for a marketing team not to work into a bubble about what goes outside, but have so much potential of feedback and influence. And I would say the feel of the company is part of what the marketing team is to pass on to the outside also. It's not just about the product, it's about the culture.
Yeah. One of the programs that I've put in place at a previous employer was what we call the King Content program. And the idea was to really provide that forum where any employee could put forward any idea, any thoughts, any background that they may have collected, and just provide it to the marketing team. And that could be used as a basis for any sort of marketing activity. And as a prize every month, we'd give out this little gorilla who was sitting on a little podium with a little King Content sash around him. And these sort of things, what's really important is to try and make them as simple and as easy to understand as possible. If you're trying to push people into some sort of very fixed structure of ideas and formulations and things like this, it doesn't really work. So what we did was just allow people they could put forward any idea, any thought, whatever it might be, and we just accept that idea for what it was and try to see if there was something in it that we could actually use in the marketing team to promote the company or tell a story or create a new article or add something to the website that we'd overseen. And they still get the recognition for that idea. It didn't matter how far away we ended up away from the original suggestion that they made. And by doing that, we just showed that you could be an impulse, you could contribute to marketing, even if it wasn't actually your day-to-day role. And I think that's key, because it makes people feel bound into the process and also bound into the organization.
So it's interesting because just earlier you brought up the discussion about the risk and the risk factor and things like this. And with programs like the one you are describing, it basically elevates the people inside the company, elevates to beyond the role that they originally would have. I would say that it just gives them the additional oversight and the additional influence they might want to have to go and drive things forward. And there too, I mean, this is the interesting part, is the fact that when we say there is a risk into having ambassadors, I mean, yes, I mean, we see that even in the ambassadors, that the official ambassadors, they always walk a fine line sometimes between like what is right to say, what's wrong to say, right? And this is in fact the mission of the ambassador, is to carry forward the voice, to carry forward the brand, carry forward the product, the mentality, the culture of a company. And sometimes you might come into a clash mode, and well, okay, so be it. Not everything is going to be fantastic all the time. I mean, I know campaigns, advertising campaigns that have flopped on their own, even without having ambassadors enrolled into that. So I think this is really, if we don't take the risk as communicators of marketing, if we don't take the risk of communicating to the outside and sometimes saying it the way it should be said, I'm not saying with no respect to anything, but from the standpoint of supporting a brand or a product, there will be always somebody who's going to criticize and come along. So on the product that you had on that King Kong program, have you had, in fact, resistance, people coming and saying, oh, this is going to be so bad, or the stuff that comes out is not worth it? Anything like this, or everybody was on board by default?
I think there was some reticence to participate. There was some reticence regarding some of the ideas that were put forward. Is that appropriate, or should that be used or not? But I think, like you say, it's the role of the marketing team to take those risks and to weigh them up and decide whether they're worth pursuing or not. Obviously, not everybody was happy with the outcome of some of that. Some people felt it detracted from the brand. Some people felt it added to the brand, or had other opinions on the whole thing. But then that's always the way marketing is. That's the biggest challenge, I think, for marketing people, is that there's lots of opinions out there and lots of ideas, and it's not science. Marketing is not science. It's a creative structure. It's a creative process. And especially in organizations that are heavily technical, heavily engineering based, it's very difficult to go out and do those creative things, because people were very, passionate as well about accuracy and staying true to their vision of whatever's going on. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges around that, and it didn't always go to plan, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, it's the marketing team takes the responsibility. The marketing team produces and promotes everything that it creates and puts it out there. And I think the key thing is obviously the basic thing to keep in mind is that you shouldn't make anything that's offensive or anything on those ends. That's a complete no. And you just need to do things sensibly. And at the end of the day, the people that will tell you whether it works or not are customers. If you see responses to that, if you see people engaging with the brand, engaging with the products and the business, then that's your job done. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk in this case for the marketing team to have too many inputs. and not being able to sift through them. But I mean, I think we have to be clear here about branding and about ambassadors. It's not about just gathering information, and it's mostly about providing a platform and the right structure for people to be excited about what is going out, and so they can spread the right word out of the company. It is not about, it's not a poll about always what can we do better or anything like this, because some people, honestly, internally, are not going to have the time always to answer back to polls and information. I mean, they each have a work to do, and this is not that. But I think we just added a new dimension into a marketing team right now. For the ones that don't have this, is the fact that internal communication for a marketing team is, I would say, as important as the external one. Not more important, not less important. It is as important as the external one. And unless those two are working together, it's going to become very difficult because the internal communication will have one flavor and the external communication is going to have a different flavor. And the contrast eventually between the two of them is going to be such that people don't really understand anymore where they belong and what to listen to. And that's
Yep.
a dangerous thing from a marketing standpoint. You want everybody to listen to the same word, the same direction.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think there has to be some congruence between the two sides. It all needs to look like it's all come out of the same team, same organization. And I think, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges for small and medium-sized businesses is actually handling that channel, that internal channel. So I think if you're already struggling because you're a one-person marketing organization, or you might even just be half people marketing organizations, what you really need to do is define what's really important at the moment. I think the most critical thing is to make use of your internal ambassador team and get information in so that it can influence your marketing campaigns. If you're big enough and far enough along that you can start to use those people to contribute to the marketing campaigns and the channels, provide them some training, provide them some guidance as to how to use social media and which social media platforms you want to use. And the things that we've spoken about, communication channels like Yammer, Slack, Teams, and so on and so forth. Create groups there and share with people what it is you're doing, when it's going out. Make sure that all your team are in LinkedIn and following your own company, for example. Should be one of the first things you get your new employees to do. So they can actually see what's going on and participate and help out, because it's all part and parcel of being part of the group. And also make sure people are clear that they are allowed to participate. It's something that contributes to work, and it can be done on work time. And using LinkedIn to make a post or share your thoughts on something the company's written about is perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a fantastic summary of everything we've talked about over the last 25 minutes. Thank you, Stuart. This is really very helpful. I think, Joe, for everybody out there, this is part of a culture. Making ambassadors allows you to also reach out to many more places without increased cost. I mean, this is something that is important. It requires some training. It requires to foster the ambassadors, to show them what to tell, but also to win them as being part of the company and being happy with what they do. It means that the management and everybody that is driving this has to walk the talk. They have to become role models and really themselves listen to what is going on inside the company, and in return give back the information about what is it that that it can share and how it goes forward. I mean, you don't want to give the recipe of the secret sauce, but but this is this is the point of being able to manage that communication internally. And most important, I think, for you out there, and this will be, in fact, the conclusion of this call, it is the fact that ambassadors are linked to the marketing team, and they might not be always managed by the marketing team, but there's a big element of communication that the marketing team has to do and work together with the inside of the company to make sure that the stories that are being shared internally and externally are absolutely aligned and consistent. Stuart, thank you very much for joining us today into the episode. It's always a blast, and really appreciate your contribution.
Thanks for having me again. It's been a really interesting topic to look at, and I've enjoyed reading up on it and yeah, going back through my notes on the insurance seminar that I attended. So yeah, I hope everyone benefits from the knowledge that we've been able to share and experiences. Yeah.
Hopefully so. And for everybody out there, contribute, ask questions on Vimeo, ask questions on the LinkedIn site. Just tell us what you think. If you have questions, we are more than happy, even after the episode, to go and talk about it. And maybe the same way as we're ambassadors, maybe it's a good reason for us to do another episode about this. So be safe, enjoy your day, and talk to you soon. Have a good one.